Hey, so one of my pet peeves when I browse the internet and the TikToks and the YouTubes is listening to people who don't hire anyone talk about the best ways to get hired by places. So I figured I'd make a video as somebody who does actually hire lots of people and has read thousands of resumes at this point and done hundreds, if not thousands, of technical interviews. I'd kind of give you my perspective on it as somebody who hires for technical companies. I figure I'll do this in a three-part series. I actually wrote a three-part article series about 5 years ago. You can check it out on my LinkedIn if you want all the details of what I'm talking about here. But we'll start off with resumes today. First and foremost, why do you have a resume? It's to give me enough information about you that leads me to believe I should interview you. That's kind of it. It doesn't need to be like a 10-page dissertation on your life or all the experiences you've ever had. It just needs to be proof that you have enough experience that you're worth talking to about this job we have available. So keep it short, to the point, distill it down to a relevant executive summary of your skill sets. Focus on things that you did that made a difference to your previous organization, because I'd like to believe you'll make a difference in my current organization. Um, just for simplicity and reader's sake, don't use tiny little fonts. Keep things like, think back to college. 12 point, double spaced if you want, single space is fine. A couple of pages at most. It doesn't need to be 10 pages long. It definitely shouldn't be 10 pages long. You don't need little tiny 10-point fonts. You don't need fancy stuff. Of course, they add Times New Roman, whatever. All those are great little fonts. You don't need to include fancy graphics or colors. We're just flipping through these. Sometimes I'll be browsing 50 or 100 of them at a time. Having a green font is not what's going to make you stand out as a candidate. It never has, and it never ever will. Um, Take details and cues from the job ad if they're decent. Um, if it says we're looking for systems administrators, talk about how you were a systems administrator. Talk about the tools we say you're going to be managing, things like that. Show us that you paid attention and that you have that requisite background, and focus on those details. That way, if I'm not the first person who reads your resume, maybe somebody less technical sees it first. They can match up the words, and that makes their life easier. And then they pass you on. In most of the roles I hire for, I will be the first one to see your resume, so I can usually connect the dots a little bit, but that's not always the case. So hedge. Proofread your resumes. It's crazy how many people send us resumes where the minute I open them in Word or something, Grammarly and every other tool lights up, and it's like, hey, all these things are wrong. And I think immediately, wow, I wish this person would have used any number of free tools that are available to not make their resume completely awful. Do that. Take the time. And set the right expectation. One of the big things people do on resumes that's incredibly frustrating is like they hype up their experience on stuff, and they try to make it sound like they have this like depth of knowledge in all kinds of obscure areas or all kinds of weird areas, when really most of us are just pretty practical people. I don't need you to be an expert in all things TCP/IP. I do need you to understand what DNS is and be able to explain it to me in simple terms, because that's what our clients will expect. Um, I don't care that you spent one day working on a Cisco ASA 10 years ago, right? Like, that's not experience. I do care that you've spent the last 5 years managing and administering Windows 10 systems or whatever you've been doing. So pick and choose what you list there. More is not necessarily better unless it's real experience. Because what will end up happening is you're going to make this really long list. I'm going to pick something I'm an expert in and I'm going to ask you about it. And if you can't answer, I'm going to just assume the rest are lies also. So just be honest with your stuff. Um, and if you do decide to drop off a resume in person, people haven't done this in a long time. I did write this 5 years ago, and people were still dropping stuff off at our desks. Understand that you can't be a jerk. Like, that's a weird thing to have to say. But on more than one occasion, we've had people drop off resumes and just insult the people in the front of our office. Um, One, we don't have a receptionist. So, like, who's up there is a complete coin toss. I mean, my current place, we're mostly remote anyway, but at my old company, I mean, it could have been the owner of the company. It could have been me sitting at the front desk. Like, so it just depends on who's out in the lobby. Be really cautious about how you behave around people, because even if it was a receptionist, I'd go ask how you treated them. And if you treated them poorly, I wouldn't hire you, because I don't like people who treat anybody poorly on my team. So yeah, think about that kind of stuff. And finally, if you submit a resume and you get turned down for an interview, I remember when I wrote this, it was right after a candidate. We said, hey, we appreciate the time you took to apply, but no thanks. They flipped out and started insulting us and calling us all kinds of names. And um, I've never considered saying, oh, you're right, I should interview, after someone's called me every name they could think of. So just, take it professionally, try again later. You probably weren't the right fit at the right time. maybe tweak your resume or whatever it is. Ask for feedback if you want it, but definitely don't go down the road of insulting people who tell you you're not the right fit right now. Um, don't worry too much about all the noise online. You hear about things like ATS systems and stuff like that. As long as you're following basic general advice on how to write a resume, it's going to get to the right people if you're the right fit. An ATS solution or applicant tracking system, they're used for large organizations mostly to track people who are applying. Um, you're not going to run into too many problems if you just follow the rules that I kind of mentioned. Keep things simple, keep things clean, and it'll all kind of work out. If you start using weird, wonky fonts and tables and colors and all this stuff, it's going to be a bad day for your app, your resume, and it'll still get through. It just probably won't get as much attention as you want. But anyway, check out my LinkedIn, read through the other articles. Otherwise, we'll make another video later. Have a great night, everyone. I think my lights just went out.